Hello and welcome to video 4, Moving Forward, Building a Path That Works. Welcome to the final video in this series on EBSA. I'm Jean from Inspired Education Coaching. Over the last 3 videos, we've talked about recognising EBSA, those crucial first steps when your teen won't go to school, and the daily reality of living with it. Today, I want to talk about moving forwards, because at some point you need to think beyond just getting through today. You need to think about, where do we go from here? And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes back to school as normal isn't actually the answer. Sometimes we need to build a different path, and that's okay. So let's talk about working with schools effectively, alternative education options, and knowing when it's time to think differently about your child's education. Working with school. When EBSA becomes ongoing, you need a proper plan with the school, not just crisis management, but an actual strategy. And here's what that looks like. Request a formal meeting, not a quick chat, a proper meeting with everyone who needs to be there. Form tutor, year head, Senko, maybe the pastoral lead, and ideally someone senior enough to make decisions, and maybe take a friend along with you. Come prepared. Bring a written summary of what's happening at home, the Saturday night anxiety, the very real physical symptoms, the morning struggles, the masking and subsequent crash. Schools often don't see this, so you need to paint the picture very clearly and in detail. Use the right language, say EBSA, emotionally based school avoidance. Say mental health crisis. Say we need adjustments. These phrases have weight in the system. Ask for support. This might be called different things: a return to school plan, a pastoral support plan, an individual healthcare plan. It doesn't matter what it's called. What matters is that there's a written document outlining what adjustments will be made, who's responsible for what, how you'll monitor progress, and when you'll review it. Be specific about what might help. Here are some possibilities. A reduced timetable, starting with specific lessons that they can manage. A safe space they can retreat to. Permission to leave lessons if overwhelmed. Adjusted expectations around homework and deadlines. A key adult who checks in daily. A later start time to reduce morning pressure. Movement breaks, seating adjustments, flexibility with uniform. You're not asking for your child to do nothing. You're asking for adjustments that make education accessible to them, and this is their right. If your child might have special educational needs, talk about assessment and EHCP, Education, Health and Care Plan. The process can seem daunting, but it can also unlock support. Even if you're in the middle of seeking diagnosis, you can request an assessment. Follow up in writing. After the meeting, email a summary, just to confirm what we agreed today. This creates a paper trail, and that matters. And if the school isn't helping, sometimes you do everything right and the school still doesn't get it. They still insist on full-time attendance. They still treat it as a behaviour issue, and they still make it worse. If that's happening, you have options. Escalate it to the head teacher. Contact the SEND team at your local authority. Get advocacy support from IPSEA, SEND and you. And these are free organisations. File complaints if the school is discriminating against your child. In extreme cases, change schools. Now, I know changing schools is massive, but if the current school is damaging your child's mental health and won't make adjustments, then that school is discriminating against your child. Alternative education plans. Right. Now let's talk about the thing that many parents find terrifying. What if mainstream full-time school just isn't working for your child? What if all the adjustments in the world won't make it viable? What then? Well, take a breath. Your child's life is not over. There are other paths. There's the reduced timetable. It's not a dirty word. It's a legitimate, reasonable adjustment. Your child attends school part-time, maybe attending specific lessons that they can manage on specific days. They might do some work at home. They might just focus on well-being while attending what they can. It's supposed to be temporary, but frankly, temporary can be quite long if it needs to be. Alternative provision, or AP. These are smaller settings designed for students who can't manage mainstream. They're often much smaller classes, more flexible, more trauma-informed. They're not the naughty kids' school. They're an alternative when mainstream isn't working. Elective Home Education, EHE. Yes, you can home educate in the UK. You don't need to be a qualified teacher. You don't need to follow the national curriculum. It's a legal option and thousands of families do it. It's not easy, especially if you work, but it does exist. Online schools. There are now legitimate online schools where your child can complete their GCSEs remotely. They're not cheap and they require self-motivation, but for some young people, they're a lifeline. College at 14. Some colleges offer vocational courses for 14 to 16-year-olds. Your child can do a BTEC in something practical while still being in education. It's a different path, but it's still a valid one. Part-time college, part-time school. Sometimes a mixed model works. A few days at school, a few days at college, building skills and confidence in different environments. Apprenticeships from 16. Not the traditional route, but for some young people, hands-on learning in a work environment is far more effective than trying to force another 2 years of school. Now, none of these is perfect. All of them have challenges, but they exist and they work for many families. When back to school isn't the goal, this is the hardest thing for many parents to hear. So I'm going to say it gently but clearly. Sometimes trying to get your child back into mainstream full-time education isn't the right goal. Sometimes the right goal is keeping them alive. Keep them connected to you. Protect their mental health. Find a path, any path that doesn't destroy them. I know that's not what you imagined when they were born. I know you had dreams of exam success and university and traditional markers of achievement. But pursuing those dreams is making your child suicidal. Then we need different dreams. And here's what I've learned in 40 years of working with young people. There are many paths to a fulfilling life. GCSE at 16 in a main school is just one path, and it's not the only path. Some young people do their GCSEs later. I myself did my GCSE maths in 2017 at the ripe old age of 65. Some do them online, some don't do them at all, and find other routes to the careers that they want. The goal isn't school. The goal is a child who's alive, who trusts you, who believes they have a value and a future. Everything else is detail. What actually matters? So what actually matters when you're trying to work out the path forward? Your child's mental health is non-negotiable. If the current situation is destroying your child's mental health, it has to change. I don't care how good the school is on paper. I don't care about league tables. If it's harming your child, it's not the right fit. Your relationship with your child, this has to be protected at all costs, because when they're 25 and looking back, what will matter isn't whether they got their GCSEs at 16. What will matter is whether they still talk to you, whether they trust you, whether they know you were there on their side. Their well-being over their achievement. I know this is hard for ambitious, caring parents to hear, but sometimes we have to choose. A child who's alive and well but hasn't done their exams is infinitely better than a child who got straight 9s but is suicidal. Progress, not perfection. Can they manage one lesson a day? That's progress. Can they leave the house for an hour? That's progress. Are they talking to you about how they feel? That's progress. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for sustainable forward movement, however small. Finding their people. Who else can support your child? A youth worker? A tutor who gets them? A coach? A counsellor? A trusted family member? You can't be the only one, and they need to know that there are safe adults in the world beyond you. Remember that question from Cheryl Ann Pankhurst? Who is my kid's next safe person after me? Start building that network. Hope. I want to finish with this. There is hope. I've worked with families where the situation felt absolutely hopeless, where the child hadn't been to school in months, where relationships were shattered, where parents couldn't see any way forward. And I've watched those same young people find their way. Not always in the frame we've wanted, not always in the way we expected, but find their way they did. Some went back to mainstream school with the right support. Some moved to alternative provision and thrived. Some were home educated and went to college. Some took an extra year or two, but got there in the end. The path isn't always linear, but there is a path. And you know what else? Many of these young people, the ones who struggled so deeply with mainstream school, they go on to do remarkable things because they've had to develop resilience, self-awareness, and courage that their peers never needed. The skills they're learning now, advocating for themselves, understanding their needs, knowing their limits, these are life skills that will serve them forever. This is hard. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but it's not the end of their story. It's a difficult chapter. Right, that's the end of this series on EBSA. Over these 4 videos, we've covered how to recognise EBSA in your secondary student, what to do in those crisis moments when they can't go to school, how to manage the daily reality and look after yourself, and today, how to think about moving forward, even when forward looks different to what you expected. If you've watched all 4 videos, thank you. I hope they've given you some practical help and some permission to trust your instincts about your own child. And my final reminder, download the free guide, Understanding EBSA, a parent's guide to supporting your secondary student. It pulls all of this together with additional tools and resources, and the link is in the description. If this series has helped you, please share it with other parents who might need it. EBSA can feel desperately isolating, and knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And remember, your child is lucky to have you fighting for them. Even on the days when it doesn't feel like enough, it is enough. You've got this. Take care, and thank you for watching.